excited you're here. I wanted to do this. I'm trying to do a series of conversations, little mini free webinars just to give you information. So many of my pastor friends, when this pandemic began, we're trying to figure out how are we going to lead our churches through this. Some of my fivefold ministry traveling friends, itinerant ministers, trying to figure out, hey, what am I going to do now that I can't travel? Some of my entrepreneurs and media-minded people in the kingdom trying to figure out when this first began, how do we make it through? And I had a really interesting free webinar with Tantalel Walters, who's the owner of the Mind Box. I had her on here. Her and myself gave some serious sessions on the concept of digital churches, like what is a digital church? You know, how can a digital church function? How can we be more digital? And I really enjoyed all the feedback that I had. So I wanted to do something else like that. And I saw a conversation that someone I knew was having online. And I thought this is super effective. And I wanted to bring him on. Now, many of you are going to recognize the name when I introduce him. And you wouldn't be here if you weren't interested and you did not know what we were going to talk about. But he literally grew up in Christian media, Christian television. He's the grandson of the founders of the Trinity Broadcast Network. And in addition to that, and I've known him now for a few years and kind of followed him, he's been just producing a ton of stuff in the church, outside of the church. And so I'm really thankful that he came to be here with me this evening. Brandon Crouch. Brandon, welcome to this little webinar.
Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're living in a crazy time right now. It's forcing a lot of people to go online. And yep, we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to make it better, right?
Absolutely. So I want to get there. I want to go to the tips and tricks, but I want to back up for a minute because I think a lot of the people who may watch this on my side of things, they probably know your name. Maybe they've seen something you've done, but your story is really fascinating. You grew up in and around television. How young were you the first time you were involved in a production? I mean, I know you may not have the exact age, but do you remember?
Yeah, I do actually. So a lot of people don't know this, but my dad, when I was 0 to like 18, owned a full-scale production company, called it PJ Video. And he was running cameras out the back of our garage from, to obviously to ministry people, but he was also doing a lot of corporate stuff too. I remember being on set of Disneyland commercials when I was like 5 years old. I remember doing Knott's Berry Farm commercials, if you guys know where that is, here in Orange County, California. So I just remember being in and around cameras and production since I was literally 0 years old. I mean, I have a funny story that my dad, those old cameras used to be, yay big, and they were these big, massive honking things, and they had like a separate tape machine, and you carried the tape machine as a backpack, and then it kind of had this Ghostbusters type of feel to it. And I remember as a kid taking a hose, thinking that the eyepiece was like a receptor for water, and as a 3-year-old kid was watering my dad's $150,000 camera in the front yard. So no, not good. So I mean, those are some earliest memories of production as a kid. But obviously dad did Christian media, but we were also doing just corporate commercials, car commercials. I remember doing tons of car commercials. And so we did a spectrum of everything. And then right around the end of my high school, I was about 18, is about 2001. My dad went back to TBN to work for TBN for about 10 years. So that kind of leads us into, I guess, now.
Yeah. And so for the people watching, by the way, I see all the comments. Thank you guys that are watching this live and the replay viewers. Glad you're here as well. So for the people to know, like literally this has been your whole life. And now you're doing this in the church, out of the church. So I want to focus a little bit on media done right in the context of ministry and ministry streaming and just making sure people have tools. Because as you said at the very beginning, this whole situation has forced us, all of us, to take online media serious. So let's start the conversation here. What do you think is an area or areas that you feel like as church ministries, ministry based people that we do wrong? Like when we start trying to stream, we start trying to get our message out there. What are some things we really do wrong?
Yeah. Well, let's just kind of give a high level overview of what's
Yes.
happening. I mean, obviously, for the last 5 years, my dad and I, and really for our entire lives, really have wanted to take the tools of Hollywood, the expertise, just everything that we can gather, and bring them into the church so that the church was doing something excellent. And so, back in the 80s and 90s, we were doing stuff with Benny Hinn and Joyce Meyer and some of these major, mega ministries, and really helping them up their video game. And obviously they were seeing the fruit of that production, and not everyone is going to get to that level, but we had always encouraged churches to really think about media and think about people outside of the four walls of the church. So with that being said, we had, Ryan, what would it take to build a church to hold 40,000 people in one service? What would you think? 30 million, 40 million, $50 million to just build one building to
Absolutely.
hold,
Yes.
40,000 people. And that's potential people that are watching online, so the analogy goes that it would take $30 million to build a building to get 40,000 people into that building, or you could spend $1 or $2 million and have the same audience just virtually online. And that was always our kind of pitch to some of the bigger churches was, hey, let's think about the people outside the church. How many people could be watching, donating, contributing, seeing the great causes that you guys are doing, getting involved, and maybe they live in a different state or a different country. And so right now with the coronavirus, we are in a state where we can't meet within the four walls, and it's forcing these churches to think about media, and it's unfortunately abruptly hit a lot of churches in a bad way, where they weren't prepared for it, didn't have vision for it, didn't really care about it. All they cared about was the people inside the four walls of the church. So the mega ministries are doing fine. The Stephen Furticks of the world, the Hillsongs of the world, those guys have always been doing media. They're set up, but there is a whole bunch of people that have what I call the kind of mid-level church that just never really saw a vision or really wanted to invest in the video gear to make their online presence and do it well. And I'm thinking, the churches that have 500 people to 1,500, 2,000 people, those are middle size, churches that aren't busting at the seams, but they have enough resource that they could direct that into a media ministry, and now are forced to do that. And so what I'm seeing a lot of people, or what's happening is it's forcing a lot of media or a lot of churches that aren't creators to now be content creators. And they just maybe don't have the right tools, the right direction, the right information. My dad and I always talk about this a lot, but a lot of ministries will go and think, oh, well, I need to go buy the biggest, baddest, most expensive camera, and then everything's going to be great. And that is the furthest I've seen. I've actually been a part of 2 or 3 churches that went and spent like 150 grand on cameras, but no money on lighting, no money on audio, no money on set decoration or screens or anything like that, and then had no budget left over to do anything with it. So what a lot of churches are doing wrong is they think that the big camera is going to get them by, but they don't think about the lighting. I mean, you and I just on this Zoom call, I walked into the other room because I have great natural light on my face, you as well. I have earphones in my head so that you can hear me, I can hear you, there's no feedback. And so there's a lot of little things that people are doing wrong because they just don't know better. They're not video people. But the reality is like the camera on my phone is probably just as good as any of the other cameras that you would need under the right lighting. I mean, everybody's an amateur photographer with their phones now, and they realize that if they have great light, they can take great photos. And it goes the same for video. I mean, if you have great light, you're going to have great looking content. And then the other big no-no for me is audio. If you don't have good audio, audio is one of those things that you should never notice. You should never notice that the audio is good or bad. It should just be there, and it should be seamless where you don't kind of go, oh man, that's something, I don't know what it is, but something's wrong, and I can't put my finger on what it is. And it's usually that it's audio. People go out and spend, they'll cheap out on microphones, or they won't, they'll buy the, the whatever just to get by. And the reality is microphones are a big deal. That microphone sitting right in front of your face, that blue microphone, is what, $300 on Amazon. It's a great microphone, plugs right into your computer, and bam, you have great audio. So those are two big things for me, is lighting and audio. I think that the church, if you're going to get into creating content, creating media, you need to think outside of just the newest, latest camera.
Yeah. And I want to follow up. I love how you termed content creation, because really right now, at the time that we're doing this with the coronavirus and everything going on, people, number one, they're at home more. So people have a lot more time depending on their situation. Some people are not at home, but most are at home. They have a lot more time. They're looking for information. They're looking for entertainment. They're looking for outlets. Personally, I probably watched way more informational and just nonsensical stuff since I've been at home so much more. And so there's an opportunity really now for content creation. And we're talking about churches broadcasting, and I want to come back and drill into that a little bit more. But even, fivefold ministers, traveling ministers, itinerant ministers, creating content right now is such an opportunity. What do you think? I have a lot of people ask me questions like, okay, say they're a traveling minister, like what social media platform do you think that I should work on? What do you think I should create some video? What is the opportunity out there? Yeah. That's your dad in the background. Hello.
Everybody say hi to Paul Jr. We're live on YouTube right now to about, 150 people, and then a bunch of replays. We're talking about media. They saw our YouTube video last week, and they wanted to do a follow-up interview. So sorry about that, Ryan. He just walked in.
That's okay. So I was just saying, as far as for like the individual guy who's working on, I'm a traveling minister, I'm an itinerant, I'm a burgeoning author, creating content that's interesting in this season. What social media platforms do you think are good for that? What tips can you give as far as creating content?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, here's one good thought. I was just talking to a good friend of mine, Phil Cook, a couple days ago, and he's a big media guy and helps a bunch of churches and stuff. And his offices are right across the street from MGM, Universal, some of these big movie Hollywood, big Hollywood content creation places, and that's what they do. And he was telling me, he said, for the first time in really the history of our world, the church is creating more content than Hollywood. And if you really think about that, those studios are shut down. There's nobody working, nobody moving. They're ghost town right now. And the church is the one that is taking the force. They are putting people to work. They are broadcasting content more than any of these other Hollywood places, like you said. So the church is creating more content right now than Hollywood is creating, which is a crazy, mind-blowing fact. So to answer your question, the best platforms to get on, obviously YouTube, Facebook, Instagram Live are all great social platforms to go live onto. You can go live quickly, easily. I mean, really, the sky is the limit with media. You can do single camera with your phone. You can do it with your laptop. You can go get a DSLR camera with a capture card, plug it right into your computer. That way you have that really nice fall off, the aperture, you have a shallow depth of field. So it's just for me, I think someone getting into this really needs to think about it as a crawl, walk, run type of scenario. Start off with your phone, perfect the phone. Make sure your lighting's good. Make sure that your audio's good. Make sure that you have some sort of set decoration. I mean, having just a blank wall or me plastered up against this white wall, if I was doing something, super professional, I wouldn't. I'm actually in this room right now, and I have this cool little light right here behind me, and just kind of make it little, just the littlest details go the longest ways. And so they're just little things that you just don't think about as a content creator, um, that go a long way. And so I think that, all of these tools are free. It's you have a phone in your pocket, buy a $100 mic on Amazon, and just start getting better. I mean, that's find a 19-year-old kid that just, tech whiz, that knows how to jump online and create, YouTube videos, or jump on YouTube, create an account. There's literally a button in the upper right hand corner that says go live, and you're literally live streaming on your YouTube channel within 5 minutes of setting up an account. So there's no excuse for people to say, well, I can't do it, or the churches that have never done media before and now are being forced to do media. I think there are some that are going to kind of put their head in the sand and not go down that road, just out of fear, insecurity. I don't know, but the tools that we have now, there's no excuse to not be creating content.
Yeah, I agree. And, for the viewers, I was talking with some friends of mine. I have one young friend who is working with Randy Clark's ministry and literally just like traveling all over the world. But I knew him several years ago before he was doing that. And he got this idea when Periscope came out. He started doing these things called Prophescope. And he would literally be
Mm-hmm.
on there and say, I see a young lady in a blue car and you've been dealing with depression and this. Someone would say, that's me. I have this. And he would give these crazy
100%.
prophetic words. And it was like, all of a sudden, God just opened all this stuff up for him through that. I had another friend of
Yeah.
mine that when Periscope came out, she had a gift to interpret dreams. And she felt like the Lord
Wow.
told her, go on Periscope. And I've done dream webinars with her and everything, because everybody has dreams. They can't figure out, what does my dream mean, if it's from God or not. And
Yeah.
she would walk people through that and literally do it live on Periscope. And through that, she had maybe 4 or 5 followers, I think she said. And a well-known preacher happened to come onto her Periscope, shared it. She woke up the next morning, she had 10,000 followers.
Wow.
I have another lady, which my viewers will know. You probably won't know her, but her name is Jenny Weaver. And Jenny is in my ministry network. And Jenny was doing this thing called Sing the Scriptures, where she would take a scripture, she would kind of sing spontaneously from it. And she was doing it on, I think, Facebook Live, and she'd have 50 people, 100 people. And one night,
Yeah.
I don't know if someone shared it or what happened, but it went viral. She wakes up the next morning, her phone won't turn on. It's on, but it's jammed because 500,000 people watched that video. And so, content creation, I think there's a lot of people that say, well, I'm a teacher and I teach on, faith. How can I take my phone and do something? Right now, people are discouraged. People are concerned. People are fearful. God could give you a creative idea and you could create content that's going to connect with people. I always tell people when they're asking me about writing books, they're asking me about video, I say content is king. If you don't have something
100%.
interesting, something relevant, something that'll help somebody, it's not going to connect. Now, the point of this webinar is that I could have something interesting, relevant, but if I don't figure out how to do it as best I can do it in the media world, it's going to crash and burn. And that's really where you come in. And I like the example you gave of with your phone. Brandon, I've seen people take their phone, and I didn't know this when I first started doing this kind of stuff, but I have a window on this side and I've got all of the blinds closed because the sun's coming. If I sit this way with the window behind me and have my phone, it's going to flood all this light and I'm going to look crazy. So if I was going to use that light, I'm going to turn the phone this way. So simple things like, if you're trying to create content at home and you're a one-man show right now, learning those simple tips, like you said, in the background, it will help you so much.
I agree. I mean, just to reiterate what you said, that's so important, is content is king and the cream will rise to the top. I mean, we have the greatest news on planet Earth, the good news of Jesus Christ, that he came and died for the sins of the world. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't take these tools and preach that good news wisely and do it well with excellence. And I think that's my heart. That's my dad's heart, is to take the good news of Jesus Christ and make that look and sound amazing, where people, it's not distracting, because it is distracting if the lighting is bad. It is distracting if the sound is bad. There's no excuse for bad lighting, and there's no excuse for bad sound. In fact, I want to walk you back here. Do you actually want to carry my laptop with me? It'll be fun. We're going to do a little, my dad and I are kings at, we just like to tinker, you know, we're tinkers, and we're working on a little thing in our backs. We have a little warehouse back here, but we had a bunch of videos. He's holding the laptop, which is funny. We had we just had a bunch of gear laying around, and we had a client that wanted to know, how do I take my DSLRs and do like a multicam setup and do it cheaply, do it easily? And so we took some cameras that we had, and we did like little HDMI out, and then I had this little switcher thing right here, and it wasn't really designed to do this, but if you turn it on, and we don't want to give away all the secret sauce, right? We don't give away all the secret sauce, but if you turn it on, you know, we just like to tinker with stuff. And so we had this little studio behind us with a couple lights, and you know, we just tried to make a little one-man band where I could sit here on the set and have a little microphone and have 2 or 3 cameras, and it just ups the game a little bit. It just makes your videos a little bit more interesting, a little bit better. But if you don't have multiple cameras and you just have your phone, there's no excuse. I'm just going to keep hammering it. There's no excuse for bad lighting and bad audio. And then you just plastered up against some white wall. If you see, there's some cool like soundboard right here. You know, we did a little texture over here. It's backwards for me. A little texture over here, and so it just adds a little bit of, you know, production value. And so they're just little tips and tools and tricks and stuff that we can do. But like I said, we have the greatest news on the planet. Jesus Christ is King. He's the Messiah. He came and died and rose again for us. So there's no excuse for poor quality media.
Yes. Thank you for the behind the scenes. This is the real behind the
This
scenes.
is the real deal. This is I got the dog here with me too. We're, you know, just hunkered down, trying to make great videos and do it with excellence.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people in the comments, they're asking questions now about equipment. So, you know, I know that to answer those questions properly, it's probably going to depend on what level you're at. And you said earlier, you talked about medium-sized churches. We know probably the huge churches, they're already broadcasting, most of them, quite effectively. So most of the people that I would guess would be on this stream, even watching it later, asking equipment questions, they're going to be different sizes. And in my mind, you've got medium, you've got small, and maybe what you just did, that's eye-opening, because it's like, you might be watching, you have a garage and you can outfit this, but walk us through some thoughts.
100%.
I don't think it's a one size fits all equipment wise, but maybe walk us through some thoughts. If I'm at a medium level, a church or ministry, where should I really start, or what do I need to do next? If I'm tiny and I'm just trying to get the basics, which I think, to recap, you talked about a phone, you talked about getting a light, you talked about getting a microphone. These are things could be done even in your house, but maybe any other thoughts you've got about equipment from medium to small.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of the garage thing that you mentioned before. I mean, outfitting a garage would be perfect. I mean, the size of our little studio back there in the back is probably about the size of a garage. And like I said before, it's a crawl, walk, run thing. So I would first say the first thing for you is, don't be scared to ask for help. We're here. Dr. Ryan's there. There are plenty of local people in your area that are maybe just don't go to the church, but you know, no media, no cameras, no audio, no lighting, whatever. So first thing I would say is don't be scared to ask for help. And then 2, in the crawl, walk, run scenario, obviously start with a phone and great lighting, and get a small microphone. And next level is get a DSLR camera and shoot on that for, you know, a couple weeks, couple months. Wrap your brain around f-stops and apertures and different lighting shapes. And I mean, honestly, there's more free video online resources on YouTube than ever before. So if you wanted to Google 3-point lighting, jump on YouTube and you'll be a 3-point lighting expert in an hour. Google audio, microphones. Personally, if I was in the game, I would look into like a boom microphone and have a little, boom microphone that's kind of hanging right here, just out of the camera angle. And that's going to give you really, really solid full audio into your DSLR camera. And does your DSLR camera have a 3.5 millimeter jack? How do you adapt that going into the camera so that you can just hit record your stuff? And then, editing is another thing that you're going to have to wrap your brain around. I mean, every Mac comes with iMovie. That's a free tool right on your computer right then and there. I love Final Cut Pro X. I use it all the time. It's $299. It's a great editing software, great editing platform. You can throw in graphics and cut off the front and back, and it's just crawl, walk, run. And like I said, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you want to get crazy, you can jump into the Adobe Premiere Suite, Adobe After Effects if you want to start creating your own graphics. There's lots of tutorials. There's also lots of free transition packs. There's free graphics packs. So if you're not a graphics guy, which I'm not a graphics guy, but I'll download a $30 After Effects template and manipulate it and do a couple little things, add some titles and different things like that, and boom, I'm now a graphics guy. So there's just so much resource out there, and I think that if you're being forced into this, which the church is, there's no excuse to just put in the time. If you have an 18-year-old son that is not doing anything, sitting around, he's a perfect candidate to get involved in media. Put a camera in his hand, give him a $200 editing software, and go make fun memories with it. Like actually, my son and I, he's 6 years old, and kids' videos do great on YouTube. He and I grabbed a camera and we went and shot him playing video games for an hour, and I put together this little video, and now he has his own YouTube channel. So for more than anything, I mean, it's just fun. We just love shooting. We love creating content. We do it for fun. Obviously, we do it for our jobs, but that's how we learn, is we tinker in the back in the garage with video cameras, and what mic sounds better than the other one, what lenses work for this scenario, just all of that kind of stuff. So there's tons and tons of resources. I mean, we could talk for days on here's this resource, here's that resource, here's this, but it's all there. It's all on YouTube, and it's all free.
Yeah. Well, that's such great advice, because truthfully, you can find so much free. I know when I've been building my e-commerce stuff that I do in various ebooks, and all of you that are on my YouTube channel, you've heard me talk about it. A lot of it I learned as I went on YouTube. And even when I was thinking, like for me, I was doing a lot of Facebook Lives when I was traveling. So I would look at, hey, what's a mic that I can travel with? This one right here, the Yeti mic, I could travel with it, but it's kind of bulky. So I've got another little mic on my desk that's a Shure mic. It actually will plug right into my iPhone, and it travels super easy. So I think, as you're saying, YouTube is a great resource for especially the people who maybe have a one-man band kind of ministry, or a small church that maybe before this started, you were not involved that heavily in media. I want to ask Brandon some more questions, but I see some interesting questions popping up in the chat. I'll answer them real quick. Somebody asking about webinars, and I would say webinars, from my own experience, that there's so many different platforms. It depends on how you want to stage the webinar. The one that a lot of people use is Zoom. A lot of people use Zoom. I don't use Zoom as much, and somebody's asking me what's the difference between Zoom and what I'm using now. I'm using BeLive, and I'm simply using BeLive because for me, that's just easy. I'm familiar with it, and I'm broadcasting from BeLive straight onto YouTube, and I'm doing it myself. So nobody else is here. I don't have a camera operator. I'm using a web camera, and it's just super easy. But I've found with webinars, it really depends on what you're going to do with the content. Some people do a lot of e-courses now where they do professionally produced 7, 8, 9, 10-minute segments. But from my experience, most webinars are a lot more raw. and a lot more simple. So I think it
Yeah.
depends on what you're doing. You have any thoughts about webinars, Brandon?
I do. I actually just did a 300 person webinar where we had like 7 or 8 panelists, and we used Ring Central, and it worked great, but it didn't broadcast to YouTube. So it was kind of its own thing, its own platform. You could record all the videos, you could record the audio separately in their own stems. It was great for kind of a panelist and audience integration, but it wasn't great for like replays like on YouTube. So like this video is going to replay on YouTube. It didn't seamlessly integrate into YouTube's platform. You'd have to download it, edit it all together, and then put it up on YouTube later. Like Ryan said, different platforms do different things better than others, but I don't think there's really a wrong way to go. I think at this point, Zoom, Ring Central, BeLive, YouTube, Facebook has their options. For me, being a social guy, I would probably lean towards more of the social media sites, just because you get the analytics. And you do get analytics on the other platforms, but you get the interaction, you get the social interactions live like we are right now. And yeah, really, there's not a wrong or right answer to that question.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, one thing I would say with webinars, and I don't know from the person asking the question. So, there's webinars, which typically tend to be free, some are not. And then there's paid events. I call those ones that I do e-learning events. So I'll usually do a higher level of production for a paid event. And some people, do really high level productions. I just did an interview earlier today. I was interviewed by Sean Bowles for his podcast. And Sean really does a high level of production for all of his e-courses, because he's going to archive them in the cloud and people are going to buy them and be able to watch them over and over. So for me personally, the monetary side of that is a part of the decision. If I'm going to sell this package and it's going to be something a lot of people, I hope, are going to buy, I'm going to put more production value. If I'm doing something free like this, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So, and I didn't know about the one that you had mentioned, so I'm going to check that out. There was one thing I wanted to ask you about as well, and I want to make sure that any other thoughts you have on equipment or advice, we get it out. But when I watched, you and your dad did a conversation, and that was where I got the idea to invite you on and talk with you. But you guys said something that I thought was so interesting, and I think that for people, I hope, watching this, maybe we can change our thinking, because your dad was kind of talking about the early days of his experience with Christian television. And then you kind of brought your current experiences with the church you're a part of. But you guys said something along these lines that, many of the bigger churches that that are media savvy, prior to this pandemic, they were already preaching beyond the number of seats in the building. So in their, I hate to say it this way because people might think it's something that I don't mean, but in their business model or their thought process of investment and gathering, it was as much media as it is people in the seats. And I think that from my experience personally in ministry, whether you travel or you're in a local church, a lot of times you get super focused on the people in front of you. And right now in this situation, you're going to be really struggling if that's the case. So what do you think about that mindset? Because I thought you guys said it in a very interesting way, and it helped me see it clearly. What do you think about that mindset that we maybe need to change now and going forward in any facet of ministry, to think beyond just people in chairs?
Yeah, I think that this virus will change the way that ministry does church forever. I don't think this is a temporary change. I think this is going to change the mindsets of church leaders across America and really around the world. What if this happens again? Are we going to be prepared? Because there's so many people that are unprepared. So the larger churches, the ones that have the budget to do it, there is a way to do media where it isn't distracting to do media for the people, the 3,000, the 5,000 people in the room, but they're also addressing now the people that are watching online. And I think that they realize, and like you said, I don't like to say it this way, but at some point you have to think dollars and cents. People that are online are donating to your cause, to your ministry. One of the ones that does it the best is Stephen Furtick. If you've ever been to Charlotte, North Carolina, you go to his church. His church has uh, it's a full-on production, and the people that are part of the church sitting in the seats know that. They know, hey, Pastor Stephen Furtick's call, his mission is media to reach people. He's a great and anointed speaker. He's an eloquent speaker, and he's going to reach thousands of people to come to know Jesus around the world through this media ministry. And I'm a part of that. I may not be, this may not be catered to me in the room, but I know that, and I know that this is going to go online, and I'm part of that ministry of helping people to come to know Jesus through these online or video or taped video services. And so some of the practical things involved in that is, a lot of churches with big 5,000 member congregations have what we call IMAG screens, which are the big screens to the left and right of the pastor, where you kind of see like this kind of tight shot. And it's really for the people in the back of the room that want to see the pastor from here up and kind of see his words and see him speak. And if you on the platform, so it makes you think a little bit. Us doing media, people are, I'd say half the room is watching a video screen anyway, and the other half is probably close enough to see him head to toe, but even maybe have a side, if they don't have a good seat and they're off to the side, they're probably looking up at that screen also, watching him speak also. So what's the difference between someone sitting in that building watching a video screen, or sitting in their home or in their office watching a screen right here that we're talking to right here? So I think one of the things is we have to think about media. It's vitally important on a smaller budget, on a smaller scale, and even obviously some of these larger ministries have thought about the bigger scale as well, and are already doing that very well. I think one thing that I heard from Phil the other day is that a lot of churches had video, but they weren't really doing it well, and they weren't thinking about how to do it well for this pandemic or this online world that we're going to have to live in, where there's nobody in front of them. They used to have 2,000 people in front of them, and now they have 0 people in front of them. And a lot of churches started off doing it really poorly, where they just said, all right, we're just going to do this video as standard operating procedure, as if there were 2,000 people sitting in front of me. And when the joke hits, there's crickets because there's no one in the room. And so a lot of the churches had to think strategically and creatively and realize that there's no one in front of the room, so we need to change up our strategy. And I think a lot of strategy was that a lot of people that are doing it well went from shooting these head-to-toe shots, these wide shots of the room, to really just doing this and just saying, you know what, guys, here's the message, tight, my eyes are in the camera, I'm looking at my camera as if I'm looking at one person. And I think that's so huge. I think some of the best people, some of the people that speak the best, that do the best, understand that the camera is one person. You're having a one-on-one conversation, realizing that there are 4, 5, 10, 20, 30,000 people watching that one camera. So they're making the services that were normal standard operating procedures of showing wide shots in the room to just these very intimate, very small living room coffee conversations. And I think that's an effective way to start communicating, is making it feel one-on-one, making it feel small, making it feel like, hey, this is a huge epidemic. We're all going through it together. I'm sitting here in my living room. Let's have a chat.
I agree. Well, I was interesting because I told a friend of mine the first Sunday that the majority of churches had shut down, I was at home like most people were. And so I was watching different services. And my observation was the people who kind of just tried to replicate the experience minus the people, it just felt very inauthentic. It was weird because you would not naturally stage it the same way. And so I've seen over the week since then, people sort of adapting their presentation. And some people that I've seen have just done it amazing, both on the large scale and the little scale. And I've actually been really just cheering on like all the pastors and preachers who've been mixing it up, because a lot of them are stepping outside their comfort zone. I understand that, because as a communicator, when you're dealing with an audience, you feel something from the audience. And then if you're a Holy Spirit driven person, you're looking to deposit something in the audience. So you have to recalibrate, and you have to think, as you said, when I'm looking at this camera, that, you know, I'm talking to a person. And I see some people asking questions in the comments about marketing books and different things. You know, you can take what we're talking about right now, you can bring it onto social media. I've had people who've written great books, and they're trying to connect with their audience. And I tell them, you know, the people following you on social media, they already like you. They're
Yeah.
drawn to you. They're friends
Yeah.
with you. They're followers. So it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to convince them of your project than to go beyond that. But people will say to me, I don't know how to talk to my phone. And I'll say, pretend you've got a person sitting there and you're
Yeah.
sharing your passion that you took the
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
put into this book. So I really love
Yeah.
the way you kind of brought it there, because I think you have to think that way if you're going to communicate on camera.
Yeah. I mean, here's a good quote. I was reading a book the other day, and the book's quote was, "Humility always opens the floodgate for God's grace." And I think in a time like this, we're in a pandemic, and I think that standard operating procedure of the big band, the big work with the electronics, and this is just my personal opinion. This isn't a do or don't, but I think to humble and make the production small, feel like a home, acoustic guitar set, just a small worship set, and just really getting on our knees before God, I think is going to be a very effective way to communicate, especially in this season. I think, you know, the most effective thing that we can do as Christians is get on our knees and pray. And I think, you know, Bible says that if we humble ourselves and pray, that God will open up the floodgates and bless our land. And I think that this is that season that we're in. I think we're in a season of humbling ourselves, humbling our churches, humbling who we are, getting on our knees and praying before God and saying, "Hey, look, you are the God, you are the creator of the universe. This is you take this and you make it what you want, and you mold it into something amazing." And I think this coffee room chat, this small intimate living room chat with maybe acoustic guitar, a couple little songs here and there, I think is going to be a really effective way to communicate by saying, "Hey, I honor God on my knees." And two, I'm honoring our government. I'm honoring the social distancing lines. I realize that this is a major issue, and we're going to do everything that we can to keep you safe, to keep us safe, and to worship God and honor God with everything that we have. And I don't know, I feel like that very small, intimate season, this is going to be, you know, you and God, and with us being at home in isolation, I think this is a real amazing time for us to preach the gospel in a really great way. But I think intimacy and humility are going to go a long way in this season.
That's such a great word. And that's a great place to sort of start bringing our conversation to a close, because I think that that puts perspective. A couple things, and then I want to give you a chance. Any final things you want to toss out? Somebody's asked this question, and I do want us to answer it. Is it possible to live stream on multiple platforms with one camera? So one camera, but you're maybe trying to go to YouTube and Facebook.
Dan, is it possible to go to live stream to multiple platforms at one time? Yes, it is. It's called Wirecast.
Mm-hmm.
Wirecast is the software that you can use. It's a encoding software. You have it on your computer. You take one stream of video in, and it will output it to multiple different destinations. I've also done this the poor man's way too. Believe it or not, I did this with Pastor Benny Hinn a couple years ago. He wanted to do the same thing. He wanted to go to Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, all of them at the same time with one thing. And the media guy had 3 phones, and he set the phone up where it would perfectly hit a monitor on the other side. And so he went live on 3 different phones, set up with 3 different accounts. So that's kind of the poor man's way of doing it. And it actually worked fine. He did do an audio jack into the phone, so it was real audio. It wasn't just the audio coming off the monitor. So that's one way of doing it. But Wirecast is it's a software that you can buy, and you can go to multiple destinations at one time.
Yeah, and you're able to, so that the person knows exactly what we're saying, you're able to do that with only one camera. So you're just getting
Yep,
a third-party solution, your signal's going through it and then distributing out. And I love, so
exactly.
crawl, walk, run. This is the analogy for wherever you guys are at. Brandon, if people want to find you, find your company, find out more about you, how to connect
Yeah.
with you, hire you for a project, where can they find you?
Yeah, I first I want to say there's no project too big or too small. It's my dad and I. That's why we're able to. We're the only two in this office right now, so we're social distancing. We're staying safe, but we do have a ton of clients that want to go online. They don't know how to. They need help. They need help with cameras. They need help with just anything. There's no job too small or too big. So I want to say that first. Our website is pjvideo.com. Click on get a quote or contact us. Send us a message. Send us an email. We'd love to help you out. A lot of times it's simple, just little questions that we can help out, but we'd love to get more involved. We'd love to, you know, Zoom in to you or FaceTime, and we can be a part of your ministry, your organization, whether you're a corporate client, anything that you guys kind of have going on. But it's pjvideo.com, and we'd love to help you in any kind of way. I we sent out one of those memes that says, "Pray for the churches that their videos won't look like an Osama bin Laden cave commercial this weekend." So we want to help you not look like an Osama bin Laden cave commercial. So please, please, please send an email. Go to pjvideo.com.
Yes. So you guys go check out what Brandon's doing. Super creative stuff. Brandon, anything we didn't say that we needed to say, or did we cover it?
I think we got it all. I mean, you pretty much nailed it.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, and thank you to everybody. Those that are watching replay, go check out pjvideo.com. Hopefully, you guys will create some absolutely extraordinary things during this time, and we're praying for you. Thanks for all the love. Thanks for all the support. I am doing a live e-learning event May 11th and 12th called Amplify. We're going to be talking about digital media, ebooks, growing your subscription models, all that kind of stuff. So you can go to lestrangeglobal.com and find out more about that. That's it for the day. Brandon, thank you again. I appreciate you. Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, Ryan. See you, buddy. Bye.